I thought your man behind us making the cup of tea was going to interrupt him. And you just like...
I'm getting some water. Oh, pause that, please. Sorry.
It's fine.
We'll start that again. Welcome to Coffee Not Found, the gamification and advertising podcast. This week we are looking at gamification and learning, which is a topic that's near and dear to our hearts. We've done a few projects on this, and it's an area of kind of interest to us in general. But as well, it's a big area of kind of growth and especially in appealing to a generation that probably aren't as engaged in the traditional methods of learning. So
and are very used to growing up with technology and game mechanics in general.
When you have people who are instinctively more tech savvy, you can do more because they're tech savvy. So it's one thing to have a gamification set up in place and you have a tablet. If like the whole education for the first 2 weeks is how to use the tablet, it kind of gets a bit off. And as well, it helps you to engage with people who's like, somebody showed me a quote there yesterday. It was supposed to be Seinfeld, and it says everybody has, people have a short attention span. It's like people have an infinite attention span, you just have to be entertaining.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is just kind of cocky coming from him, because obviously he's good at it. But so that's the kind of the meat of it. So as always, we've kind of come with science first. So that's your area.
So just some basic stats on gamification in general, and it more got to do with sort of e-learning and education. So almost 80% of learners say that they would be more productive if their university or institution or work was more game-like, and that's a survey carried out by Talent LMS. And another statistic according to the Huffington Post is since 2010 over 350 companies have launched major gamification projects, including consumer brands such as Adobe, NBC, Walgreens, eBay, and loads more. And it is expected by 2018, which is this year, which Statista expected, was that the gamification market would be worth $5.5 billion. So when I got actually introduced to the company and gamification, and genuinely just started looking it up and figuring out what I could know about it, I didn't realize it was going to be such a big industry.
Yeah, and that's just one area of just gamification of learning. I mean, like, again, we'll use our own experience here, but we're not plugging ourselves. It's just you talk about what you know. We found that gamification actually works really well across the spectrum of ages, as long as you do it in a smart way. So one of the projects we had was the energy team who do in-community education of people in renewable energy, with a view towards those people then going on to retrofit their houses. So there were two aspects to the project. One was to explain to people what it was and so that they'd understand why and the benefits of doing this. And the other side was to kind of pick what suits them, because like solar panels do not suit everybody. Wind power definitely doesn't suit everybody, and electric source heat pumps might not suit. So they had to kind of figure out what area suited and then implement that into the various houses. And what we did was we created kind of like a little quiz show. Everybody was playing against everybody else. My favorite is still the first time we ran it, and the two people were a competition with each other. In his late 70s, retired Garda, and like a 10-year-old kid. And they were like vying for each other, and you could see it, but like, you could see the other guy going, I've got this. It just had this cockiness about him, and they were like, well, now, to be fair, he won, so he did okay. But on the back of that, then we have data coming from the back end of that game, where it analyzes how much people know at the start of the training, how much they know at the end, what improvements. So it just means that when they're going to sustainable energy authorities and stuff, they can say, well, look, we showed this increase in knowledge, we showed this. It's not just, because God knows you've done every training session or anything like that you've gone to, and you get the little A4 page, how did you rate this training? And it's like 5, 5, 5, 5. And then you just submit it.
Absolutely not really that much.
No, and I got a phone call about 2 months ago. I'd gone to a training session, and I got a phone call, and they said, Colin, and I was like, yeah, you were at the training session there on the, I think it was on venture capital. I was like, yeah. It's like, did you really not like it? And I was like, no, it was grand. Yeah, it was good. She's like, okay, because you rated everything really poor. I had mistaken at the very start whether it was 1 and 5 where the scale was. And I had just gone, do, 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 and everything was just like, it's awful, it's awful, it's awful. Yeah, I was like, oh no, can you just reverse those scores? But like, I kind of felt like, okay, some people give you honest feedback, but just this way it meant that they were getting feedback through the whole process. So at the end, they didn't have that kind of, well, I don't know what you call it, happy results or something like. So, in terms of classroom learning, then it's applying gamification to a classroom environment.
Like a crowd learning environment, as you described it yesterday. Yeah,
exactly. So in some ways, you're pooling the resources of everybody else to kind of get everybody to learn together. And is this democratization? There we go. Related that out, and I got it first time, honest. But it's the democratization.
Just stop trying to say that word.
Yeah, basically it's amalgamating all that so that everybody is teaching everybody else as well, because that's the best way of learning anything, is when you're teaching somebody else. So when you have kind of an environment where everybody's, even going back to a couple of weeks ago when we talked about game jams, when everyone's coming together and people are bringing different expertise and teaching other people, that they learn more, and they retain it more. And that element with gamification involved is brilliant, because you can do you can make it competitive, but you can also make people competitive with themselves when you introduce mini achievements.
The great thing about gamifying something is people in their lives actually forget that they have a sense of agency, like a sense of control over where you're going to go, depending on how much work you put in and the decisions you make. People forget that a lot, and that's what makes people anxious or not confident, and exams and tests and things like that are often seen as a very scary thing. But you've never played a game and felt like you can't control it. Really, in reality, there is decision-based games where you don't really know what the outcome's going to be or that kind of thing, but most games you're in control of your character, you made your character and you make the decisions, and you have that sense of agency which gives you the confidence in the game. Gamifying something often gives people a greater sense of agency, and people with a greater sense of agency have been proven to be more resilient to negative feedback and to just take it on the chin and take it as feedback rather than criticism or being overly negatively critical of someone that's not constructive.
You can see it with, again, going back to not just game jam environments. I'm just using that because it was something we talked about recently. But when you have a group of people in a room and you're working towards the same goal, but you're bringing different opinions, it's that constructive criticism. And if you get that early enough, you can actually take, because you need to be able to take that to grow. Otherwise, the first time you get out into the workforce and somebody disagrees with you, it's like, no, it's unfair, and away you go. So it makes a big difference. And then obviously the achievement side of things. So you'll all know from your, or you won't all know, but you'll have seen from the likes of your Apple Watches or your Fitbits or Nike. Is it Nike has the one?
Yeah, Nike Plus.
Nike Plus, where it's like you're competing with yourself, and well, actually they all do. Even my watch tells me, oh, you've climbed more flights of stairs this week than before, that kind of thing.
Pedometers are a very, very cool and simple form of gamification. Like give people a lot of reward and a sense of achievement. Yeah,
and exactly. And if you can do that, which you can with learning and with achievements in that sense, it makes people build up on it for very little outlay. Then again, this isn't new. I mean, just think back to when people were kids and they used to get stars.
Yeah, and it's that is something as well. I find Khan Academy do it very well with their badge system and things like that. When you complete a course on their site, you don't really feel like, oh, you got a gold star. I'm sitting there like I'm 20, I'm trying to learn programming. I don't want to be treated like that. But that's not how you feel really in reality. And this kind of XP or point system or badge system or level system, they're mechanics that people learn now, especially the generations that are in the workforce now, quite young or are in college and things like that, or have grown up with games majority of their life. relate to those mechanics very well, and they do give a very good sense of achievement, and they're a great motivator. And you're starting off on zero rather than like a guy put out I seen in a video, which is you go into a classroom and you start at an A plus, and then you steadily go down from there because not everybody's a perfect A plus, and yeah, you go up and down, but your grade like goes down in a curve overall. And whereas when you go into a classroom and you start off at zero, and every test is XP points.
Yeah.
You're doing nothing but progressing, and that's not just trying to sugarcoat how good or bad you are at a subject, but if you're progressing, you'll have more motivation to keep going.
Yeah, it's not demoralizing.
Yeah, obviously you're still going to have a certain level of XP then instead of just an A or a B on a test.
Yeah, yeah, it's like merits basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I know it's works really well. It's very clever kind of system. Once you do it right, it can be a bit cringy and it doesn't work because people will very quickly. Well, if you implement it badly, people will just go, "No, I can game that system." It's like when the Wii came out and everybody was able to, everybody was there bowling and golfing, and then someone realized, "Oh, look, I can do it from the couch." Just make it like this. If someone thinks they can game it and they get around it, then game it, or get around it, they will. So you've got to be very clever and adapt it according to the people that you're dealing with as well.
Your demographic is important.
Yeah.
When it comes to gamifying, especially when it comes to the likes of classrooms and in the education system and things like that.
Yeah. Because we've looked and we're working with a company at the moment, again around renewables, a different company, but basically they want to gamify learning of energy generation. It's just something that the wind turbines and things like that. But basically because we can read in from, like IoT, we can read in from whatever we want. So we can put a meter on a wind turbine, blow air at it, and it can come up on the screen what speed it's going and how much energy it would have generated. And you can do that across it, because it's software based, it can be done anywhere. So these people can go to classroom to classroom to classroom, and they can have a leaderboard overall, and you can have classes kind of competing against each other. Even when we were doing the Dundalk game jam, the guys came back having won the war. What was it? The Code Wars? Was it Code Wars? Robocode. And basically that was a game where you were competing coded robots against each other to see who could win,
Yeah, you were learning coding.
Yeah, it was just an interesting way of applying it. I know it's a bit like, we didn't have them here, but you see them on TV in the States, science fairs and stuff.
Yeah.
Who's got the best project? But it's a nice way of doing it. It's another way of doing it. And that's the thing, we talk about gamification here on a podcast, nice modern way of talking about things, but gamification has always been there. It's just becoming more prominent. So when people think gamification is new, it's not. We've had stars, stickers, maybe in the caveman days they had chalk outlines.
Like the definition of it is literally applying game mechanics and design to a non-game environment.
Yeah.
And that can be done either through software or just simply done like a small change in something like rewards and things like that, or XP points.
Yeah. But it's definitely something to, if you are trying to educate people, bear it in mind. It's a great way. We'll always, as this podcast goes on, you talk about more things which overlap a little bit. But obviously we talked about Sesame credits in the past. Yeah. Very similar idea. I think gamification and learning is different in that you are rewarding good behavior. You're not penalizing bad behavior. Yeah. And that's the nature of when it's a successful gamification project.
And that's not to say that, grab a load of video games, bring them into your classroom, and the kids are going to know everything they need to know in life. No, it's not to replace the curriculum that's already set there, but you can integrate things like that.
You can enhance it.
You can enhance your curriculum by doing tests through more sort of gamified experiences, and there's even software already out there made by teachers, like sort of Classcraft and Class Realm, I think, are two of them.
Okay.
So.
Very good. Yeah. I think we actually kept on topic the whole way through.
Yeah. It's a success.
I'll go us. It only took 6 months anyway. No, it's not 6 months at this point. Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us today. We'll be back next week. This has been Coffee Not Found. You can find us on coffeenotfound.com, at CoffeeNF, CoffeeNF Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. and just look us up on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Bye.